Have you ever worked under a leader who did not seem openly toxic, did not yell, did not insult people, and did not create obvious drama, but somehow the team still felt drained? People stopped speaking with the same energy. Meetings felt flatter. Initiative dropped. Trust got thinner. Good employees started doing the minimum, keeping more to themselves, or quietly checking out. And from the outside, it was hard to explain, because morale does not always collapse from one big leadership failure. A lot of the time, it drops because of repeated reactions that seem small in the moment but send a message over time: a dismissive response, a defensive tone, a lack of acknowledgement, a pattern of urgency, a moment where someone speaks up and leaves feeling smaller instead of supported. That is what we are talking about today. Today's episode is about 5 leadership reactions that quietly kill morale. Because low morale is not always caused by workload alone. It is not always caused by compensation, and it is not always caused by major organizational problems. Sometimes morale erodes because of how leaders respond in everyday moments. Before we dive in, I've included links in the description to free resources that can help you grow in your communication, leadership, and confidence at work. And if you want to go deeper into strategic thinking and leadership, you can also check out my book, The Strategy Blueprint, a step-by-step guide to building your company strategy, available now on Amazon. Now let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Work Chat, where we help you navigate the modern workplace with more clarity, confidence, and influence. And today, we're talking about morale, because a lot of leaders think morale is mostly about motivation, perks, culture events, or whether people seem happy on the surface. But morale is often much more subtle than that. Morale is the emotional energy people bring to the work. It is whether they still care, whether they still trust, whether they still feel seen, whether they still believe their effort matters. And once morale starts dropping, performance usually follows. Not always immediately, but eventually. So let's talk about 5 leadership reactions that quietly damage morale, even when the leader may not realize they are doing it. Number 1, reacting defensively when people raise concerns. This is one of the fastest ways to make morale drop. Someone raises an issue. They flag a concern. They say something is not working. They offer feedback. They question a decision. And instead of feeling heard, they get a defensive reaction. Maybe the leader explains it away. Maybe they get visibly irritated. Maybe they jump into self-protection mode. Maybe they act like the concern is exaggerated, ungrateful, or inconvenient. That kind of reaction sends a powerful message. It is safer to stay quiet. And once people start learning that lesson, morale starts slipping. Because one of the biggest drivers of morale is whether people feel they can be honest without being punished emotionally for it. When people feel like they have to manage the leader's defensiveness every time they bring up something real, they stop bringing their full selves to work. They become more filtered, more careful, less candid, less invested, and that is exhausting. A healthier leadership reaction sounds more like, "Thank you for raising that. Say more about what you're seeing. I may not agree with every part of it yet, but I want to understand it." That kind of response protects morale because it tells people that honesty is still welcome, even when it is uncomfortable. Number 2, only reacting when something is wrong. This one is incredibly common. A lot of leaders are so busy, so focused on fixing problems, and so used to scanning for risk that they mostly react when something is off. When there is a mistake, they respond. When something slips, they respond. When someone disappoints them, they respond. When a problem appears, they respond. But when people are doing solid work consistently, silence. And over time, that silence becomes demoralizing. Because people start feeling like the only time leadership energy shows up is when something is broken. That creates an emotional environment where people feel more corrected than valued. And when that happens, even strong employees start losing energy. Morale grows when people feel that good work is actually seen, not with fake praise, not with constant applause, but with real acknowledgement. A simple, "That was handled well. I noticed how steady you were in that situation. Thank you. That made a difference." Those moments matter Because if your team only hears from you when something is wrong, they start associating your presence with pressure instead of support. And that slowly wears people down. Number 3, reacting with urgency to everything. This one is sneaky because a lot of leaders do not realize how much their urgency affects the emotional climate of the team. Everything feels high priority. Everything sounds pressing. Everything gets escalated. Everything needs attention as soon as possible. And over time, the team stops feeling focused and starts feeling flooded. When leaders react to too many things with the same level of urgency, people lose their sense of what actually matters. Now, every request feels heavy. Every message carries pressure. Every small issue feels like it might turn into a bigger one. That kind of environment drains morale fast, because people cannot stay energized for long when their nervous system is constantly being activated. Strong leaders know how to regulate urgency. They know how to distinguish between important and immediate, important and not immediate, annoying and not urgent, and truly urgent. That discernment matters because morale does not only depend on support, it depends on emotional pacing too. If your team feels like they are always bracing, morale will drop no matter how committed they are. Number 4, reacting to mistakes in a way that creates shame. This is another major morale killer. Mistakes happen, things get missed, judgment slips, execution is imperfect. That is normal. The real question is, what happens next? If the leader reacts in a way that feels humiliating, overly sharp, or loaded with disappointment, the mistake becomes more than a correction. It becomes a wound. And people remember that. They remember the tone. They remember how exposed they felt. They remember whether the conversation made them feel capable of recovering or just embarrassed for failing. Shame-based reactions do not create excellence. They create fear. And fear may produce short-term compliance, but it does not create healthy morale. It usually creates hesitation, over-editing, defensiveness, lower initiative, less openness. A better reaction sounds like, let's look at what happened. What do we need to learn from this? How do we prevent this next time? That does not mean being soft on standards. It means separating accountability from humiliation, because people can handle being corrected. What slowly kills morale is feeling diminished. Number 5, reacting as if people's capacity does not matter. This one is huge, especially on hardworking teams. A lot of leaders unintentionally damage morale by reacting to people as though they have endless capacity. More work gets added without context. More priorities pile up without things being removed. More deadlines get set without asking what else is already in motion. And when team members try to flag overload, the reaction is often subtle but damaging. Maybe the leader says, "We all have a lot going on," or "Just do your best," or "This needs to get done." Now, sometimes that is reality. Sometimes the work really is intense. But if people consistently feel like their limits, trade-offs, and workload reality are invisible to leadership, morale drops. Not because they expect work to be easy, but because they want to feel that their effort is being managed with some thoughtfulness. One of the most morale-protective things a leader can do is acknowledge reality. That sounds like, I know this is a lot. If this moves up, what needs to move down? Let's be honest about capacity here. I do not want to keep adding without clarifying priorities. That kind of reaction tells people, I see the load, not just the output. And that matters deeply, because morale is not just about whether work is hard. It is about whether people feel alone in carrying the hardness. So when you step back, what do all 5 of these reactions have in common? They make people feel smaller instead of steadier. They make honesty feel risky. They make good work feel invisible. They make pressure feel constant. They make mistakes feel personal. They make effort feel taken for granted. And that is how morale drops quietly, not always through one big failure, but through repeated emotional signals that tell the team, you are here to perform, not to be supported. That is what leaders have to pay attention to, because people do not just respond to your intentions, they respond to your patterns. And if your patterns create tension, invisibility, fear, or constant pressure, morale will erode even if you care deeply about your team. That is the hard truth. But the good news is this: morale can also be rebuilt through patterns, by responding with curiosity instead of defensiveness, by acknowledging what is working, not just what is broken. by bringing discernment to urgency, by correcting without creating shame, and by treating people's capacity like something real, not something inconvenient. That is what better leadership looks like. So if you are leading a team right now, here is the real takeaway. Do not only ask whether your team is getting the work done. Ask what your reactions are teaching them about what it feels like to work with you. Because morale is not shaped only by strategy, structure, or workload. It is shaped by everyday leadership moments. And those moments add up. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you want more practical support, I've included links in the description to free resources on the website, along with my book, The Strategy Blueprint, a step-by-step guide to building your company strategy, available on Amazon. If this episode resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the Work Chat for more practical conversations on workplace communication, leadership, confidence, and navigating the modern world of work. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What leadership reaction do you think damages morale the fastest? I'll see you in the next episode.